Hello, my name is Recky, and welcome to the episode number 4 of Share Your Story. Share Your Story is all about men and women sharing the story with us. No matter if they were a combat medic or a cook on a ship, active or veteran, we want to hear it. Check description for more information on how to apply. My guest is a Swede, and we're all about to hear his story. His name is Johan. Hello, Johan. How are you?
Hello, Recky. I'm fine on a Saturday.
On a Saturday. It's a beautiful day, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still summer.
It's still summer, and it's a Saturday. You were in the military, and as per usual, I just start from the beginning. I'm talking about, did you do your conscription, or you got drafted, right?
Yeah, it's like that in Sweden, or it was, and it is now again.
Yeah.
But back in the 80s, it was conscription. All men had to serve in the armed forces or in the forces.
So what did you do? Did you already, when you got drafted or you did your conscription, did you already know that you will have a career in the military, or this is, no, you did not?
I had already decided to try to do a career in the armed forces, and especially in the Air Force.
Oh.
And that's also where I ended up doing my conscription as a platoon leader.
Okay, so what was your job as a platoon leader in the Air Force?
When I did my conscription, it was more like, I think today it's like a specialist for one of the fighter squads as a technician. So it was more technical training than actually fighting or military training in the beginning. So I did my conscription as a platoon leader, and back in the 80s, the Swedish Air Force had like fighters, and they also the Air Force had like they call it Airbase 90. So you could land a fighter or all aircrafts from the Swedish Air Force on a small field, like also regular roads.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was a lot of training out in the field, taking care, preparing and sending off aircrafts.
All right, so your job was like on an airport, and could be a really primitive one too.
Yes, but this was on of course on an airfield, and it was my conscription was for 1 year.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, I was then the platoon leader, and then I continued to the Air Force Academy for Officers Academy.
Okay, so you went after conscription. You went to Officer Academy, and I feel like you already knew what you're gonna do when you finished your conscription or your draft time.
Yes, it was a part of being an officer, was to do 1 year at least as a platoon leader before you could apply for the Officers Academy.
So how was it to lead?
I think in the beginning, when I started this career, I was more or less thinking about being as a specialist. I would like to be the best technician for the aircraft, and do know a lot of things of how to take care of the aircraft and what the aircraft could do and things like that. But I ended up rethinking that, and for me it makes sense that leadership, and it's of course in the armed forces but everywhere, is what makes the clock tick, so to say.
Yeah.
If you don't have the correct leadership, you will end up worse. If you have a good leadership, you can, from a lousy situation, even handle it, because the leadership is very important for me.
Yeah, I understand that. So what do you think, as a leader, what was the most important thing for you when you did your conscription, or
when I did my conscription, it was a hard part, because then I was leader of my colleagues and friends. I didn't have any special training. I went we were conscripted at the same time, and we trained together, And when I then went to continue to the officer academy, then the leadership more or less really started, because then I had to train new conscriptions.
Okay.
And then you start being a leader. I think it was a little bit too much friendly in the beginning, since you were in the same group, and then you should be a leader, but you are just appointed. You are not the informal leader. You are a formal leader just by paper, saying you are a platoon leader, but you are still a friend.
So let me get this straight down. You were a technician was it on fighter jets? You were
fighter jets, yes.
Yeah. So you were fixing them, or you were a repairman, or what? Is that correct?
Yes, it was like you said, everything. But for the training and for the conscription, it was mainly to when the aircraft landed, to make it ready again. And in this in the 80s and the 90s, Swedish Air Force had like this Airbase 90, and then the fighter jet, when he stopped, he should be cleared to do a takeoff in less than 10 minutes. So it was like a pit stop in Formula One, but for a fighter.
Oh, so you had to? Was it like you have to do it fast, like as fast as possible?
Yeah. So it was like a pit stop in Formula One, but for a fighter jet. So you had your dedicated task to do and report when you were ready. And as a platoon leader, I was then the guy handing over the aircraft to the pilot, again ready to take off.
But was it a combat training when you have to do it that fast, or this was just yes? Okay, yes. So it was combat training.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like that should be a really stressful situation.
And but then also this is leadership. You learned, and people learned that I have my task, and it's a part of the whole picture. If I do this, we as a team can make the fighter ready to take off in less than 10 minutes. But if I start doing things that is not on my checklist, it will end up in problems. So I do only a small part, but I can see the big picture, because in less than 10 minutes, this fighter should be ready to take off.
That sounds really cool, I gotta say. I really like the way you said that there's a pit stop for Formula One, but for fighter jets, that's really cool.
Yes, and it was a part of this Airbase 90 in the Swedish Air Force. So also regular roads could be used, and the Thunderbolt could stop in 800 meters, because they could also reverse. So it was we have, and you can still see in Sweden that there are main roads a little bit wider, and they were prepared for landing and takeoff for fighters and for surveillance for the Swedish Air Force.
I didn't know that. Now I do. Thank you for that. So you when you got into the Officers Academy, what was the main thing you actually learned or you focused on? Was it pure leadership?
It was. I think the first year it was leadership and strategic and tactical thinking, and then there was more or less 9 months just technical training on the aircraft, and this was the fighter Dragon. It's not it's not active anymore.
I think that was probably whenever I talk to people from United States, or they always say that their favorite Swedish fighter jet was the Dragon.
Mm.
It looks really cool. I've seen. I used to work myself on a military airbase, Ep4, F7.
Yes.
For about a year, so I've been close to Gripen, and one time they actually showed the Dragon, and I fell in love with that one because it looks like it can kick ass. To be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're done with the Officer Academy. Then what happened?
Yeah, what really happened here was as I said, I was trying to be a specialist on the aircraft, but when we also started training the new inscripted as an officer, and I told you about that, in order to make this Formula One pit stop for a fighter, you need to train the people and act as a group and as a team. So I think I did 2 or 3 years, and then I thought a little bit about being okay. If you're a specialist, you can reach very high, but you don't see the big picture. So after a couple of years, I was trying and also applied for a job at one of the, in that days it was like a secret airbase just outside Kristianstad, and there was 3 officers fully trained. So you were trained to be an air traffic controller, to take care of the field, and also to make almost all aircrafts in the Swedish Air Force ready for takeoff. So it was more like being a generalist, to more things, not a specialist, but a generalist, to know more things, but not that deep. So that also was a big part of how to say, the leadership, because you had inscripted from the nearby, but also people where you really could see that they could take responsibility and also see what should be done. You don't have to tell people what you should do next, because they can see it themselves. And if you give responsibility, people grow.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a big part of leadership too. To let
Yes.
to let other people actually see what needs to be done, and you don't have to tell them all the time. That's the big part of leadership, and that's a really good point. So you always felt like you were a leader?
This is a tricky question. You know, I'm a Swede, so we are a little. We don't say we're good at anything.
No,
That's up to other people to say. But I've always been very interested, and what I can say is that I've thought about much about my leadership and other people's leadership, and I have a saying that experience is not what you have done, but what you do with what you have done. So you have to reflect and respond to what happened and why did that happen, and then try to use that in the next situation.
Yeah, are you talking about the law of Jante or Jantelagen?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a typical Swedish one. You're not better than anyone else. Just be quiet. That's it. Okay, so let's continue. What was the major change that happened? Did you stick with Air Force, or was there a change of mind anywhere?
Yeah, it was. I can say that these were more or less the best days of my life, because we were 3 officers and 6 to 8 in scripted, and we had on that airfield and another airfield more than 800 takeoffs and landing during 1 year. That we were only these 9 people taking care of.
That's really cool.
So it was one day you can be an air traffic controller, and the next day you could sweep the tarmac, so it was clean, and the next day you could make the aircrafts ready for takeoff and landing. And during this period, it was also very special to land on this airbases, because it was not a regular airbase. So it was a lot of fighter pilots wanted to come just to train to land in unfamiliar situations. So we had like 800 landings and takeoffs during 1 year.
So this this airbase was hidden, or it was supposed to be? What do you
it
call
was supposed to be hidden, but nothing is actually that secret.
So, and you said it was in Kristianstad.
Yeah, it's still situated 20 kilometers north of Kristianstad, just outside Knislinge. It's called the Beverud Field, and now they use it for drifting and also for driving.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it's still you can still visit it, and it's still I think you still can. It's not locked, so you can go in and see for yourself if you want to visit it.
I'm gonna probably do that. That sounds. I didn't know that. That's really cool. Okay, let's continue. Did you stay as in the Air Force your entire time as a military?
I was serving within the Air Force all the time, but in the mid-90s or the beginning of the 90s, there was a decision to decrease the Swedish Armed Forces, and especially the Air Force. So a lot of these air wings were closing it. So I had to change from this air wing F10 in Ängelholm to F5 in Ljungbyhed, and also this Airbase 90 was put on ice. So they took away there were no. It was an unmanned airbase only.
Okay.
So I had to go back to the actual airfield and serve there. And then I started to thinking, okay, this is going downhill, and there is not a lot of career opportunities within the armed forces or within the Air Force. So I decided to try to serve abroad, to do my tour of duty, so to say.
Yeah.
And I tried, and I applied, and I ended up as staff platoon leader at a mechanized infantry company in Bosnia in '96. And that was from being an aircraft technician to be in a mechanized infantry company. That was quite a change.
That was that's how did you come up with that? Was that the only opportunity that was available, or you wanted to go from Air Force to mechanized?
No, I wanted to serve my country and do a tour of duty to see how the Swedish defense forces were acting together with other countries, and also how to work in an international environment.
But was it with UN or?
It was in Bosnia. It was UN until 95 and 96, and then it was NATO. So it was the implementation forces.
Okay.
So I served for the Swedish defense forces, but under NATO.
Okay, so you landed in Bosnia during the 90s. What was
mid-90s? Yes.
Yeah, mid-90s. What was the feeling you got when you stepped out? And because Bosnia was it was a really dangerous place back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the best thing here is that we did more than 3 months basic training with the company. All the officers in the company had 3 months, 2 or 3 months training together. So we were a tight team, the leading team, so to say, for the company. And also we did, I think, 6 weeks with all the enlisted soldiers. But this is a very good thing for the Swedish forces at that time, because you also had to apply to be even to be a private. You had to apply, so you could pick out the correct people for the correct positions. And most of these people, they were not. I can say I think it was only one for my platoon that came directly from the conscription. Most of the people, they have been working for 2-3 years, so they also had civilian competence or skills to take back into the military.
So you said it was mechanized infantry. I didn't hear if you said what kind of mechanized it was.
Sorry, what do you mean by that question?
Vehicle.
Because it was APVs.
Oh yeah, okay. No, okay.
And also it was 3 platoons with APVs and 1 with the Finnish SISU.
Okay, yeah. So you were a leader at that point? You were a platoon leader, or
a platoon leader for the staff company. Okay. So I was the quartermaster for the whole company.
Okay, that sounds really cool. So Bosnia was a dangerous place. Did you have any fear? Do you feel any fear, or you were just focused on the job?
I was focused on the job, but at that time I had children born 90 and 92, so they were quite young, and I think it was the trickiest part was leaving them and leaving the family. And in that time you didn't have like Skype or Wi-Fi and things like that. You had a satellite phone and you could use it 2 minutes a week to call home. And then it was, of course, through the PX to send post and packages. Yeah. That was the way to keep in contact in the mid-90s.
How did that impact you when you left your family for this and you did your duty? Did you regret doing it?
No, I can say for me as a person, this was one of the best things I have done, but not for the family. We will end up in that at the end. Yeah. I'm still married with the same wife, and I still have my 2 children and also now grandchildren. So for me, I also take I have my energy from my family. Yeah. So that's why I ended up saying I can no longer serve, because I was it was like a poison going.
I understand that
on international duties. So it was either the family or the military career, and I choose family. So I ended up in 99, 2000. I said goodbye to my military career.
In Bosnia, so did you have any kind of missions where you had to go out in on locations that was dangerous? Did you do any kind of missions? You went out as an infantry mechanized at all?
Yes, but when we landed, or when we were replacing the company that's been on that spot before us, we had our own base or base camp. We landed in Serbia because it was too dangerous to land in Tuzla air base. Yeah. So we had to drive by buses, and when we came to Bosnia, the most dangerous thing was to step outside the tarmac or hard surface, because there were a lot of OEDs all over the place. So if you went to a house, you have to go on where there were stones and rocks and things like that. Luckily for us, no one get hurt in this, but before us there were some serious accidents, and also people actually getting killed from OEDs.
You saying OID?
OID, yes.
I know what EID is.
So it's like they put out a lot of mines.
Oh, okay.
So it was a lot of it was a lot of minefields everywhere.
Okay, so it was for people, not vehicles.
For people, yeah. Yes,
yeah, okay.
Yes.
So anti-personnel mines. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So. Did you know that when you land that there was a slight chance of that type of danger directly?
yes, you were trained to, if you step out of the vehicle when you're doing patrols, if you had to take a leak, you had to take the leak on the car, not on the not pointing on the in the other direction. So we actually had to pee on our cars.
That's funny.
Or
To just
ATVs.
open the door and just throw it. That was really fun. So did you feel any fear, or you just knew what to do? You could rely yourself on the training and your instincts and.
I can say that this training and also the way the company was set up with all the privates, they had a couple of years being also outside the military, so they had their experience and their skills. So I was never afraid, and also during this period it was Ep4 implementation force, so it was more show of force. We had like 15 kilometers to Tuzla Air Base, and there the Americans had Apache helicopters stationed. So if there was small arms fire just outside the camp, within 5 minutes there was an Apache helicopter in the air above. So it was to take down and show of force in each situation.
So you basically just show that this is what we have. You don't want to mess with us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
was there any situation out on the field that you got into and maybe more dangerous, or a situation you always remember, or anything like that? Did anyone get hurt? Did you get shot at, or?
This is outside our camp. We started doing social patrolling, and quite soon we could do social patrolling without being heavily armed, and also after a couple of months we could do social patrolling without perhaps even go out and do some running. Because we build up this confidence in this small village where we lived. So we had good intelligence from the people living close to our camp, and also we hired locals to do cleaning and laundry and to work in the kitchen and so on. So it was even if it was implementation force, it was we starting to do the next step, the stabilization, because that was what it was named later on, stabilization force. So it was, as I said, the most dangerous was to step outside hard surface when we came there, and when we went home, it was so open and so stabilized. So the most dangerous and where most people get hurt was traffic, because when we started there was no traffic at all on the roads, and when we left it was people driving that also civilians that probably shouldn't be driving, but they haven't been driving for a while because it was dangerous to drive on the roads. So this was there was no shooting at us. Of course, this they call it slivo. When you have been drinking, you take your gun and you go out and shoot in the air, or try to hit an APV or something like that, but not regular like gunfights or combat fighting.
So did you serve? I'm sorry about. Did you serve with any other countries at that point?
Yes, it was the Nordic Polish Brigade, and all the Swedish mechanized infantry companies. They had a two-man American team, a FIST team, fire support team. So if we were attacked during our patrolling, they could lead indirect fire and position that. So when we went out patrolling, mainly with the company commander, also the FIS team were involved and joining him. So it was really show of force.
Yeah. And there was a lot of force, wasn't it? You had APCs and there was Apaches, stuff like that. So you had a pretty good force. Did you ever meet the enemy, and who was the enemy? Because I'm trying to can try to understand.
No, but I can say there were no visible enemy.
Okay.
It was they were doing the demilitarization, so they had to stay in their camps and not go out. It was the Dayton Agreement that we were implementing.
Okay.
So there was, I think the hardest part and also the most trickiest question, and also as a for the leadership and also to be in the uniform, was that they held elections.
Oh.
And this was very, very tricky, because you had to go to your old hometown or to your old home village and register in order to vote. And there were, of course, then people that didn't want people to return to their villages because it was on the wrong side.
Yeah.
So it was quite strange to be in a uniform and handling civilians trying to get back to their hometown. And you have this checkpoints, and of course when you cannot pass the checkpoint, you go out in the terrain. And what is in the terrain? You have this personal this mines out. So there were actually people trying to cross checkpoints, but went out in the terrain and got stuck in like minefields. And how do you address that? It's not your enemy, it's civilians in civilian clothes, and also perhaps a lot of women and children.
Did something happen?
Yes, it did. But what I think was the hardest part was to be outside this election house or point, and people trying to stop people to go to vote.
So it was
they sent forward like women and children to stop people, and the men were standing behind, of course in civilian clothes, not armed, but it was more like you are more supposed to have some not military training, but you should have like police training, how to stop a riot.
So it was a democratical vote situation where they have to vote on next I don't know, president or
for Bosnia. Yes.
For Bosnia. And because I can't really remember, can you give like a very brief story to why Bosnia became a hostile area?
I think the short thing is that there were Croatian and Serbs, and also then Bosniaks, and depending on which side and what where your parents came from, you ended up. You can say that Bosniaks were mainly Muslims, but so this was the situation, and there was this how do you say, ethnical cleansing of the villages, and I think we all can remember Srebrenica.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's all coming back now. It was ethnical, definitely. Yeah, perfect. So how long did you do this for? Did you have, was it 1 year?
It's in that time it was 6 to 7 months.
Okay.
So and as I said, after this election, and all, there was also one. You're not trained to this, because there were you had to. It was more like a military. It was more stabilized, and there were areas there where there actually were mass graves. So we had to guard when the UN went to take up the remains from this mass grave and to identify people. And there were a lot of people, of course, civilians, trying to find their loved ones.
That's awful.
Yeah. So it was not any. When I was in Bosnia, in it was not like you might think you go as a combat soldier, but it was more like implementation, stabilization, and also more like a police force, actually.
Yeah, being the good guy.
Yeah, but also you could never see any enemy, but a lot of civilians wanted to do things and try to do things, and so it was quite tricky. You had in your mind that it was an enemy or in uniform.
Yeah.
But then it was children and women and men in civilian clothes trying to get back to the village, trying to identify their loved ones, trying to take a vote in their former home village.
So did anything happen? Like you said, you mentioned mass graves. Did you see anything that could affect you in any way? That did affect you in any way?
Of course.
Yeah.
And this is something. If you haven't been in a situation like that, and this is something that still affects me. I'm sitting here right now talking to you and being a little bit shivering, and also the hair on my arms are pointing upwards and rising here, because if you haven't been in a situation like that, and then if you come home and you're trying to talk to people what you have experienced and what you have seen, no one can relate to that if you haven't been in that situation. So there were also close bonds with both privates and other officers. So I think 4 or 5 years afterwards, up to 5 years afterwards, there were still soldiers from my company calling me, just needed someone to talk to. Late one evening, you're alone home and you start thinking about something, and you need to have some feedback or just talk to someone who has been in that situation. I think this is that's why like firefighters and firemen and also emergency personnel, they also need to sit down and do this feedback talk afterwards. What did we do, and so on. And this is also something that the Swedish Armed Forces has learned. So you also have this like debriefing when you come home. Before you're allowed to go out in the civilian life, you have 1 or 2 days debriefing before you meet your loved ones back here in Sweden. So we did that, but also then you can connect, and some people you have easy to talk to, and some of the both the soldiers and officers colleagues, we had this like relation, and then you could call. Sometimes not that appreciated from the family if you get a call 1 o'clock at a Saturday night. But there were people still needed to talk about what they had experienced and the feelings. And this is something I sometimes still can if I get a specific smell from like wet wood and cloves, I can still feel this is the smell of Bosnia and 6 months just outside the camp.
So when you did your duty, you did your tour in Bosnia, did your career stop at that point?
No, I came home, and I of course then volunteered for the next mission. So I was only home, I think, for 2 or 3 months, and then I did my second tour of duty in Hungary, in Pécs, and it was the supply chain for the Nord Pole Brigade in Bosnia.
So what?
So
Yeah.
this was more like the supply chain. If you want to put it in an easy way, you could not buy toilet paper for 800 Swedish soldiers in Bosnia, but it would be quite expensive if you buy toilet paper and send it from Sweden. So Hungary was the place where these spare parts and things were bought and then sent in to Bosnia. And it was for the Nord Pole Brigade. So it was Danes, Norwegians, Swedes, Finns, and also Poles.
This was
Polish.
Late 90s?
96.
96, okay.
And also during this period, 95, 96, in Hungary, in Kaposvár, it was the biggest airlift since the Second World War.
Oh.
The Americans were flying in everything from Abraham tanks to Apache helicopters and so on. So it was I think what I know, it was the biggest airlift since the Second World War into Europe.
Yeah. So what happened?
It also went into Hungary.
What happened in Hungary at this point?
This was more like I said, a supply chain.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was more like not a 7 to 4 work, but it was that we had like Sundays off, and you don't have to stay at camp on Saturday nights and Sundays. So
so your primary task in the supply line was what?
All countries for the Nord Pole Brigade had their NSE, National Support Element, and they were I was in the HQ camp, and we were supplying the National Support Elements. So it was the National Support Elements who did all the purchasing for and also sending spare parts for tanks and trucks and APCs and so on. So it was more support to the National Support Elements, and also having a camp for receiving goods and sending goods. So it was like a hub.
Okay.
For supply chain to and from Bosnia.
Were you still a leader at this point?
Yes. Then I was also second in charge for a company. So I still was an officer.
What rank?
First lieutenant.
First lieutenant. Okay. So how long did you do this? And did you learn something in that spot?
Yeah. Also, the experience from here was you get even closer to the nationalities like Finns and Norwegian and Polish. So one of my still very good or one of my best friends I met here, and we are still friends. And he might be interested in being might be interested being in one of your next podcasts here.
Yeah. Just we can sort that out later on after the recording. I would be very interested in that. So you met a lot. Also you met new people.
Also the Polish people. You think that the Polish? I thought I had a, you had already mindset up what Polish people are. But the Polish people are very open and very friendly, and also very, very, very about the family.
Yeah.
So now in my civilian life, I've been working in I think now it's for 7 years. I've been working within our group. We have two sites, production sites in Poland, and I'm working quite close with them.
Oh, that's nice.
So I learned something about the Polish people, hopefully.
So you did. How long did you stay in Hungary and working with the supply line?
It was also it was 5 months.
It's 5 months.
And yeah, and then I returned to Sweden and to the Swedish Air Force, and this was also a little bit outside the regular Air Force. So when I returned, not many officers in the Swedish Air Force had been doing their tour of duty, and especially not in a mechanized infantry company. So they asked me if I want to be a teacher at the Swedish Air Force Academy. So I was actually teaching new officers, cadets, for 1.5 years in mainly in leadership. So and then during that time I also was a part of the first Swedish Rapid Reaction Force. So I was the quartermaster for the company, standing in the first Swedish Rapid Reaction Force.
Oh,
and that was what was the thin line, because I was always trying to get abroad and do international service or another tour of duty. And I was I could see there was a split between my military career and what I wanted to do, and my family.
and what they?
So,
yeah, I understand that.
So this was the only way to close this gap was to actually try to get a civilian job closer to the family, and this is what I did. So when I ended my military career, I was a teacher at the Swedish Air Force Academy, and I ended my military career there and went to the civilian.
So now you, how did you feel knowing that you're not gonna do any more duties? So you're not gonna work as an officer. You're not gonna be in the armed forces or the military. How did it affect you? I know you did it for your family, but that was something that was always something you wanted to do, and you just decided not to do it anymore. How did that impact you?
It was like a hole in the chest.
Yeah.
Because this is what you have been doing, what you have been experienced, and what you have learned from your what you have done was a big part of who you are and who you want to be. And if you take off the uniform and you should try to react without the uniform and all the codes that applies if you're doing the service, there are, like in the civilian life, there are codes that you need to see, and that was tricky to learn how to address people, how to talk around people, and how to see people react, because you know all the codes and the secret ways of telling people and seeing how people react when you were in a uniform. And that was the trickiest part, but also it was and still is when I talk about it, it's a big part of me still, but I try to use it.
So did you regret your decision? You can answer. If you don't want to answer the question, you say
no. Truly, I don't regret. I don't regret it. I have a as I said, my wife and me, we have been married for 33 years. We have 2 grown children and also 2 grandchildren. And I think when I'm sitting here now and I see my grandchildren, it's not a question anymore.
So how much do you think that your inside glow for the military impacted your family? Did you
I can say that my son, he's a specialist officer, and he also done a tour of duty in Mali. So in some way, it has affected my family. So it now hopefully it runs in the blood.
Johan, I was very eager to have you on the podcast, and I'm very, very happy that you joined me. Do you feel like you have emptied yourself when it comes to sharing your story?
Yes, I think so, because I was, as I told you before we started this podcast, I was a little bit nervous. I haven't been speaking English in a military way, and also how could I fill your program here? And now I'm sitting here watching the clock. Okay, it has been ticking, and it has been an honor, because I now gladly can remember, and also the preparation before this, to look at old pictures and see people that is not a part of your life anymore, but that was a big part of your life, and also the input to the man and the person you are today. Because I can say that my service in the armed forces of Sweden, they have shaped me to be who I am today.
When I'm talking to you, when we talk Swedish, of course, I can, without a doubt, hear directly that you have been in the military, because I myself was in the military, and every time I talk to people, I can directly say that this individual I'm talking to now has been in the military, because they have a certain way to talk. Even if we talk in Swedish, I can just hear it directly, and I think that's something that is really cool, that you can understand that just by hearing you talk. And when we're talking through email, I can feel the military, and I love that. It's a really cool thing. We're gonna wrap it up. We have been going on for a little over for 50 minutes, and time just flew, just as he said.
Yes.
I'd like to thank you again, Johan, for being a part of Sherry's story. And let's wrap it up. And next episode is number 5. And thank you guys for listening. You guys take care.
Thanks, I agree.